Hi everyone, welcome to this podcast on writing a speech for the WJEC English Language, GCSE English Language at Bournemouth and Paul College. So I will do a video on each of the writing topics. So this one is for speech writing. So for our mark scheme, so the mark scheme is same as before. So it's always out of 20. 13 for how you write, 7 for your spelling, punctuation and grammar. So to get at the top marks, this video will hopefully tell you how you can get to the band 3s and band 4s. So one thing I do want to say quickly before we go into it is a thing that I probably mentioned in class to you, sort of blue in the face a little bit. So I don't want you to start any piece of your writing in this unit 2 with I'm going to write about or I'm going to talk about. So for a speech, the whole point of a speech is you're engaging the audience, you're trying to entertain, you're giving information, but you're trying to make your speech interesting and get your audience's attention. So don't start in the most boring way of I'm going to talk about. So if you do, the examiner almost think to yourself, wipe out, and you're going to end up like this lady there. So there you go. It also tells the examiner that you're a part of the D club. Okay, so if you, it's not saying that you can't do get a high grade if you put that. However, the examiner will straight away think, well, this is a D student. So we don't want to start with that. We want to make a good first impression. Okay. So this is the checklist I've given you for most of the topics, and this one is for the speech. So I'm going to put the link to the speech video on this YouTube. So we have all seen this video, but I'll put a link to it just in case you want to watch it again. So this tells us all sort of the basics about speech writing. Here is an example of a speech question. So your school college is planning to put on a shirt at the end of the year. You've been asked to give a talk encouraging students to get involved. Write what you would say. So it should be between 1 and 2 pages. Normally it's going to be a page and a half. If you've got massive writing, 2 pages. If you've got tiny writing, 1 page. 20 marks, half an hour you should be spending on this question. Here's another exam question. You have to give a talk to your class with the title Mobile Phones, a Blessing or a Curse. Write what you would say. So the important thing to note is the similarity of they're normally 2 people your age. It's normally your college mates or your classmates. So normally you're going to be writing, your speech is going to be, well, pretending to be for people of your age. So the important question is that what makes speech different from any other piece of written work? So what makes a speech different from a letter, from a report, article or review? How have you got to write your speech differently from those things? So the answer is that the difference is it's the relationship with the audience. So you've got to engage your audience throughout. You're not talking to a silent person who's not going to be listening or just going to be sort of reading it off a A4 page. This is meant to be performed live, so because of that you've got to engage your audience. Every piece of writing in Unit 2 we've got to think about our POW. So what is the A of POW? It's audience. So ways of engage your audience is, you could say in the speech, you could make a link with the audience straight away. So you should be saying, good morning ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming. That's very formal. If you're speaking to your classmates, you could say, hi everyone, or class 3B, I'm here to talk to you, blah blah blah. Okay, so you've got to make sure you engage your audience in your intro and your first words. So like I said, make sure you refer to the audience deliberately. Make sure you show to the examiner that you're referring to the audience, not just at the start or at the end, throughout. So remember that the second person is a way of showing this link. So we know that the first person is I through our narrative writing. We know the third person is he or she. So we also know, we should know now, that the second person is you. So the D of DeForest, so you. So you could be using the word you in your speech. And the age and status of your audience will define your tone. So if you're speaking to a board of governors of the college, you're going to be a lot more formal than if you were speaking to your mates. So your age and status of the audience will determine your tone. So talking about direct address and engaging the audience, you could use some of these phrases. So, are you all aware? Do you agree? Surely, ladies and gentlemen, no one believes. So these are just ways of getting your audience involved. So you could say things like, I think we would all agree. Or you could say something like, haven't all of us done something, blah, blah, blah. So like I've said in the previous slide, you're not just using this at the start or the end, you should be doing this throughout. So you could use maybe one of these types of statements or questions in each paragraph. So have a look at this. I want you to match the feature of speech with the definition. So pause the video now. So all of these things you could easily or should include in your speech. So if you're not too sure what we are, we'll go through them. So repetition is repeating key ideas to ensure memory. So an example would be Martin Luther King's speech, "I have a dream." So he says that phrase over and over. Anecdote is short stories to provide evidence. So you might want to start your speech with an anecdote. So if you think about a Jonathan Ross show or Graham Norton show, these celebrities will come on and tell some sort of 2-minute or short little story that's meant to be funny. So that's an anecdote. Statistics. So like the letter, you can use made-up statistics to prove your point. So if you're talking about putting on an end of year show, you could say 90% of the students here have voted to put on a student show. Rhetorical questions. So this could be a good way of beginning your talk. So questions, not reading a response. So we're not expecting the audience to go yes or no, but just trying to get them involved. So memorable phrases or sound bites. If you come up with any sort of memorable little catchy little slogan you want to use throughout. Humour is as appropriate. So you're going to be more memorable to the examiner or to your audience if you maybe have a few jokes in that. Controversial statement, so another way of sort of getting through to the audience or making it interesting if you say something that people maybe can have an opinion on. And tone appropriate to audience, where we have already talked about, so if it's going to be formal or informal. So here are some top tips from the YouTube video. So do not use fillers. So this isn't spoken language. This isn't spoken language, the unit where we were looking at spontaneous speech. You've got to remember that speeches are written down before they are performed. So don't use fillers like and oh. So you need a brief welcome before you outline your topic. Then one key point in each paragraph, which should be linked with connectors, like we talked about. Then your main body. So don't worry about that too much. Just you need a few paragraphs talking about your particular topic. Then try to end with something memorable. So mirror your intro. You're trying to start with something interesting. Try to end with something interesting. Then you should be using deforest and spamo. So we've talked about deforest, spamo, simile, personification, alliteration, metaphor. Onomatopoeia. Then you should be directly addressing the audience using you and we, and it might be interesting to start with a joke or an anecdote. That doesn't make the topic instantly clear, which we're going to talk about in a sec. So here's an introduction. We all remember that first morning. The alarm goes off, but we have no need for it as you have already been excitingly awake for hours. Springing out of bed, you glare at the precious thing that lays before you. As you digest what you've been made on this special day by a gleaming parent, you begin to consider how the day will unfold. So the intro, this is the title of the speech, is "School Uniforms Shouldn't Be Banned." So that's the exam question. Give a for and against school uniforms being banned. So this is this is an A-star answer, by the way. Interesting way of starting the speech. So he's not used, or he or she's not used, I'm writing the speech, because he's done this, he or her has done this paragraph, and it could be about anything. So it could be about waking up on Christmas Day, it could be waking up on your birthday, it could be the morning you're off to Disneyland, and it's almost grabbing the person's attention. It's the audience is thinking, or the examiner's thinking, well, what could this be about? An alternative way of starting it is by doing something like this, but maybe using the phrase that I wanted you to try to remember, which was let me get straight to the point, semicolon. School uniforms should be outlawed, or school uniforms should be saved forever. So remember, I quite like that phrase. Let me get straight to the point, colon, blah, blah, blah. So two things about that. One, it's an interesting way to start, and two, it's showing that your spelling, punctuation and grammar is at a good level. So we did look at this in the class. I won't show you the video clip on here because I might get done for copyright, but I will put the link in the information. So this is Will Ferrell picking up the Mark Twain Award for his comedy, and I wanted you in the lesson to look how he begins and ends the clip, how he sort of introduces it, how he mirrors it in the conclusion, and his tone throughout. So I put the link to that. I also showed you the You, Me and Dupree clip, which I will talk about in a sec. So I'll also put this link on the YouTube clip. So here's the You, Me and Dupree transcript, or the You, Me and Dupree speech. And I basically just got you to try to pick out the techniques used in it. So if we look at it, it starts off by, hey, how are you? So rhetorical question, but also shows the informality as he's speaking to kids. So he starts off with first of all, so he's linking it in a sequencing. Living and loving. Kidlets, so he's talking to them on their level. He calls motive language, so little midget Olympic gymnast. Stay loose, stay liquid, laugh a lot, so you could argue that's alliteration and paraphrase. You could argue he uses boom bam with onomatopoeia. So it's not actually a fantastic clip, but it uses sort of quite extended vocab, languishing. prodigies. So like I said, it's not a fantastic clip for us to look at. However, it does give you sort of a quick insight into how easy it is to get these De Forest and Spamo techniques in there. So this one here, if you want to pause it, feel free. This is a C grade speech. So the topic of this is writing something to go into room 101. So out of 13 for content, it got 9 or 10. And for spelling, punctuation and grammar, it got 4 out of 7. So combined, it got 14, 13 or 14. So it's got a good C. So the examiner basically says that it shows the purpose to persuade. It's sort of set out quite well as a speech. It's quite informal, because if you're talking to your classmates, it's going to be informal. And they say the person does make a bit of an attempt to engage the reader. However, it doesn't engage the audience that much. The examiner says it jumps straight into the task, so it's not hello everyone, it just goes straight into it. At the end, it doesn't really say thanks for listening. There's no link in between paragraphs, and it says it's a bit awkward. It's not particularly great in parts. So all the things I've talked about, linking paragraphs, engaging the audience, this one didn't do and still got a C. If you want to get a C, you've got to making sure you link your paragraphs. You've got to make sure you engage the audience. So this one here, have another read, feel free to pause. The examiner thinks is an A star or a perfect answer. So we got 13 out of 13 for content and 7 out of 7 for spelling, punctuation and grammar. The examiner says it's a very high quality work with effective tone. It's clever and interesting and funny. It holds the audience way by being quite controversial. Ask questions, so it uses rhetorical devices, it uses some De Forest, and it's quite sophisticated and persuasive. So it says here it uses a rhetorical question, it uses a lot of De Forest like I just said, and it's a very sort of mature, well written piece of work. So also it uses vocab that perhaps only the target audience know, so Brangelina, so probably someone who was 50 or 60 probably wouldn't know what Brangelina. So it definitely does entertain and engage the particular audience of classmates that the exam questions looked for. So another question that you could have a look at is write a speech for a school debating competition which is either for and against the following topic: school uniform should be banned. So this is a plan. This is how I'd like you to plan it. This is how I planned mine. So intro, so engage, say hello to the audience, blah, blah, blah. First day of school, the feeling of wearing it for the first time. So that plan, that introduction I showed you probably about 2 or 3 minutes ago, about waking up on the day, being excited, that's the sort of introduction you should go for. Or you could get crowbar in, let me get straight to the point, colon. Then here I've got 3 or 4 points about the uniform. So uniform creates a community, so it's like if you all wear it, it's nice. Eradicates problems, so perhaps maybe kids get bullied if they didn't wear uniform, if they didn't have like the brands and labels. Cuts down my time in the morning, so if maybe I don't know, like maybe a girl or boy would take quite a long time getting ready if they had their own clothes. And then a conclusion, so mirror the first point, so we could go back to the idea of the first day of school. Here I put punctuation here. So all these ones you should be using, but colon and semicolon, I've put these here to remind me to try to get them into my speech. And then De Forest and Spamo, maybe I want to use an anecdote. I've got to make sure I link my paragraphs and I proofread. So all these things here are important that I need to get in, so that's why I put them in the plan. So again, this is your writing checklist for the speech. You should be getting all these things in there. De Forest, plan your power and De Forest. Remember, I've always said to you, I want you to plan the speech, and I also want to plan your De Forest. Engage your audience. You can use made up facts and statistics. Interesting opening, not I am writing, and you've got to make sure you're linking your paragraphs and using interesting sentence starters. So here's the video that we watched. Well, here's screenshots from the video. So if you don't know these things, probably best to write them down. So mistakes to avoid: writing and ah, using speech marks. So those are the 2 ones that I want you to make sure you don't do. So you begin by a brief welcome or greeting, and then outline what you're going to talk about. Now write 3 or 4 key points, 1 per paragraph. So make sure you just one point per paragraph. Don't get your writing mixed up and confused. Then end with something memorable or interesting. So like I said, the tip is maybe trying to mirror your introduction, but you don't have to do that. You can end it another way if you want to. Then your final sentence should be acknowledging the audience. So thank you everyone for listening, blah, blah, blah. And these techniques, so rhetorical devices are here. This is basically talking about De Forest and Spamo. Okay, that's the podcast over for writing a speech for Unit 2 WJEC. Hopefully it's been a good help for your revision for June the 2nd. Any questions, leave me a comment in the YouTube section or email me or see me at the college. Thanks very much.